Hey there, friends and running fans. This is Amby Burfoot welcoming you to the latest episode of the podcast Running State of the Sport.
And this is George Hirsch, your co-host at Running State of the Sport. This week, we're going to be reviewing and discussing the recent USATF National Championships.
And wow, what an incredible meet it was, George. Among other things, it included a lot of off-the-track action, which we might get around to talking about.
Yeah,
you're obviously paying attention to that. And then, some people are saying that one of the races in this meet was perhaps the greatest middle distance track race of all time. Can you guess which one it is people are talking about?
I can guess. It was the men's 800, Amby, and I've rewatched it several times. It was that intriguing a race, something spectacular. And if you haven't watched it, this is to our listeners, pull it up and take a look. We had the American record holder, Bryce Hoppel, in there, clearly among the favorites. And then Donovan Brazier, a really great story. He had been the world champion 6 years ago. And since then, Donovan Brazier, a very popular figure in the sport, has been beset with injuries and setbacks. And just recently, it's looked like he might have been really coming back into his old form. So there was a lot of focus on Donovan. And Josh Hoey has been burning it up at the 800 meters this last year. He's really become a person to reckon with. And then, amazingly enough, a Texas high school boy, just Amby going into his junior year in high school at this point, a 16-year-old named Cooper Lutkenhaus. And you better remember that name because, man, this race was just something. Well, I'll just talk about it for a couple of minutes. I'd love to spend a lot of time. We could sit down and have a beer and just talk about this one race.
People are going to be talking about it for a long time. There's no doubt about it.
I agree. It was just a classic. And Josh Hoey decided to make it a race. He took it out very fast and hard. I think the first 400 was something like 49.2. So we knew this was going to be an aggressive pace right from the get-go. And big-time runners, also Brandon Miller was in the mix. And the race just came down to, the last off the final turn. And all of a sudden, Donovan Brazier looked like the Donovan Brazier from 6 years ago. He was on the move and running a brilliant tactical race, edged into the lead. And at this point, Amby, as you recollect, the commentator said, we've got 4 runners vying for 3 places, meaning the 3 places, of course, to go to the World Championships. No sooner had he said it than this streak from behind, not one of the 4 runners, came shooting up. I mean, it was extraordinary. And it was the 16-year-old Lutkenhaus. And he was just running them down. And if he had a tiny bit more real estate, he would have caught Donovan Brazier too, I think, in another couple of strides. He was that quick at the finish. So it was Brazier who won. And believe it or not, his PR, after all his years of running and his prior world championship, he ran a 1:42.16, and then the 16-year-old sensation. I mean, we can just keep talking about him. I don't know where you put him in the world of young phenoms, but I would say pretty much at the top. 1:42.27. We knew this guy was good. We'd been hearing some about him, but this was a full 3-second PR. American Bryce Hoppel finished 3rd. and Josh Hoey, who really made the race, was a close fourth. It was dazzling, and you can't wait now for these guys to come up against the Olympic champion Wanyama from Kenya in Tokyo next month. It's easy to see an American getting onto the podium, and Americans making it all very exciting and competitive. It was nothing short of dazzling.
Well, George, I envy you. You're several times rewatching the race. I haven't had that opportunity yet. I certainly will take it, because you really want to kind of watch everything that happens in the last 200 meters, maybe 100, certainly the last 50, because stuff was going on all the time, and it was all spectacular. A couple of my memories from my just watching it once, I was quite stunned that the NBC commentary team, and I don't like to criticize these guys, it's such a hard job, they didn't even mention the fact that there was a kind of fast 10th grader in the race, which seemed like an easy thing to mention. And they also didn't seem to catch him as he was making that huge charge into second place in the final 50 meters. So that was a big surprise. It made me recall the year Alan Webb, the high schooler, ran that great mile of his at the Prefontaine Classic. I forget, was it a 3:53 or something at that point?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Amby, you're like me. I was trying to think back about high school phenoms, and of course, the first one who comes to mind, even before Alan Webb, is Jim Ryan. He was something else, but I would put this at the top of it, a 142 for a 16-year-old. There's just not words for it. I put that, I don't know, we're seeing some incredible young performers these days, not only in track and field, but in other sports. And wow, it's just extraordinary. Wait until he grows up, huh?
He physically, he looks pretty grown up, which is, of course, one way he was able to run 142.
That's right.
Somebody told him that there were some quick 800-meter runners in the field, and maybe he shouldn't compete the first 400 meters. So he actually ran the smartest race, perhaps, by letting the pace go a little bit the last lap, which gave him the opportunity to kick at the end. When I remember the Alan Webb race again, and at that point, everybody was talking about it. Hey, there's a high schooler in this Prefontaine Classic final, so we're going to watch him the whole way. And we all watched him the whole way and saw him kick strongly and move up at the end. When I rewatch this race, I'm going to be watching where Cooper Luetgenhaus was every step of the way and watch him come up with that big kick at the end.
He was way back. He was way back, even with off the final turn. It was something to behold.
And then the other thing I recall about watching the race was the Lewis Johnson interview with the guys at the end. Bryce Hoppel, who ran great but only finished third, had the biggest smile on his face. I think half because he did have a good race, and also because he realized he'd just been part of something historic. I don't think he could quite believe what Luetgenhaus had run, but he was thrilled and entertained by it and happy to be part of this team. Happy perhaps to have a great competitor, Donovan Brazier, back. I don't know. Not too many people are happy to have a guy come back and start beating them again. But Bryce, who's had a terrific career and has just been absolutely solid in this event for I don't know how many years, he just had this golden smile on his face, and it just brought the perfect conclusion to the whole thing in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. Bryce was he was wonderful. He ran a 142.49, which we all know would normally have won this thing. And then there was Josh Hoey, who, he just made the race, Amby, and he's been running so darn well. But just didn't have it over the last 50, 75 meters when these guys were all afire. It was extraordinary, one for the books.
Well, we certainly knew that there were going to be one or two great 800-meter runners who were going to be left home and not make the podium, not make it to Worlds. But we didn't know whom, and we didn't expect that Donovan Brazier, who's been looking good the last month, was going to come all the way back. And we certainly never expected that a high schooler was going to finish second. Set a 3-second PR. Has anyone ever set a 3-second PR in the 800 at this level of running before? He started the year as a 1:47 800-meter runner, which is just sensational for a 10th grader. And now he's 5 seconds faster at 1:42.27. I guess we can't let our expectations go too crazy about what he might be running in a year or two, because there's not a lot of room past 1:42. But we'll certainly be watching excitedly to see what he can do.
Yeah, whatever the commentators might not have picked up on, boy, they're going to be focusing on him in Tokyo now. I mean, he's a legitimate finalist. He could be a podium runner. With a talent like that, anything is possible. And boy, it gets me excited already for next month's World Championships. This has been just a terrific weekend of track and field. What else, Amby? I mean, there was a lot to wrap your hands around in this meet, and surprises and new names and so on. So what kind of, caught your attention?
Well, as middle distance and distance guys, I have to say that the men's events have been sensational this year, all up and down the line. Perhaps a little bit more than the women's races. We will get to the women, but certainly number two after the 800 meter was the 1500 meter, the men's 1500 meter, where again we knew that there were going to be more than a couple. There were going to be a half dozen fantastic milers, 1500 meter runners who didn't make the podium, didn't take the top three in this race. But we didn't know who they would be, and there were surprises. One of them who didn't make it was Yared Nuguse, who's been as good as anyone in the country for the last 3 or 4 years. He finished fifth. Hobbs Kessler was fourth, and therefore at this point not qualified for the World Championships. But the guys who finished 1, 2 here were surprises because they beat Cole Hocker, who's nothing less than the Olympic champion and a guy who's believed to have a great kick at this distance, and a great kick often takes you where you need to be. So Cole Hocker finishes third in 3:30.37. But ahead of him is a young Army runner who's Kenyan-born named Jonah Koech, who runs 3:30.17 with a huge surprise, astonished look on his face as he breaks the tape. And just behind him is the young collegian, Ethan Strand, who runs 3:30.25. Strand has been running great all year, and there have been a number of times when he's just mistimed his kick slightly and not won because he's gone too soon or too late. This time I think he went a little bit soon again, but he held on for that strong second place. What did you take from this race, George?
Yeah, I come back to Cole Hocker. He was amazing in Paris, the way he slipped in the inside and stole the race in 1,500 meters to become the Olympic champion.
He loves that inside lane, doesn't he?
We saw it again, Amby, in the 5,000.
Right.
He wasn't to be denied a second time in this meet. In the 5,000, he had plenty of incredible competition. Nico Young, who had won the 10th hour already a few days earlier. Grant Fisher, who I think has put a stamp on American distance running in recent years with his 2 medals in Paris at 5 and 10,000 meters. And there was Cole Hocker kind of repeating what he did in Paris, finding an inside lane for himself. And then again, that incredible drive to the finish, just enough to edge out Grant Fisher and a little bit ahead of Nico Young. And poor Drew Hunter. I say that because we all know getting fourth is not something you want in championships. And this is his second time he's come fourth. And I listened to his interview, and he was incredibly gracious, and he knew he had run a terrific race. And I gave him a lot of credit as well for that. But Cole Hocker, Amby, my God, put him in a race, and you're going to have some real fireworks for sure at the end.
So do you think he's following the Jakob Ingebrigtsen playbook? Because he's, running 1,500 and 5,000 in a number of these meets now, running a strong 5,000 here. Of course, the miler's kick is just a great weapon to have if you're going to be running the 5,000. And Cole has got that miler's kick.
Well, he's qualified for both. That doesn't always mean he'll choose to run both. I think he'll do what he feels is best for him. And as he saw here, he did fine with the double. So I would guess he's probably looking forward to, as you say, doing a Jakob Ingebrigtsen type double. And boy, that's going to be wonderful when you have Ingebrigtsen and the Brits, in there as well. These are going to be pretty amazing races in Tokyo for sure.
Well, we haven't seen Ingebrigtsen run yet this year because of an injury and a slow start. Apparently, he's going to be racing soon, and certainly the eyes of the world will be on him to see if he has got the kind of fitness that he's going to need to have to run against not just the Americans, who are all legitimate contenders now, but of course the rest of the world as well, including fast runners from Great Britain and his own Nordic countries. So we hope Jakob's back and ready for it.
Well, let's shift gears completely to the sprints, and this time to the women's sprints, Amby. Every now and then a sprinter just, takes off, and they sometimes do it in an Olympic year or World Championship year. And Melissa Jefferson Wooden, she put the world, which I would say that means the Jamaicans, on notice that she is ready to perform at both 100 and 200 in Tokyo. And, she's going to go up against the best in the world. And I think after her 10.65 in the 100, and she ran a easy victory 21.84 in the 200, beating the likes of Olympic champion Gabby Thomas in the mix. I think she's got to, like it or not, assume the favorite role in both races, throw in a relay, and she could come home with 3 gold medals from Tokyo.
Boy, 10.65 really caught my eyes. And not just that, but the distance she's winning these races by, and the fact that she's been consistently fast all season. I hope she gives herself a little bit of a break now, although I suppose she'll be out in a couple of Diamond League races. But she looks almost unbeatable right now. I'm not quite sure who will come up to her level, but she has elevated her game a lot this year.
Yeah, and speaking of Gabby Thomas, and by the way, as you know, I always love speaking about Gabby. She's just a total favorite of mine. She's just so. Listen, she's the Olympic champion. She got 3 gold medals in Paris. But what a charming, brilliant, accomplished woman she is. But man, at the end of that race, there were 3 women that crossed the finish line. I mean, we, the viewers, couldn't sort them out. And it turned out that they all had the same time of 22:20. And they were just waiting. She was lying there with the camera focused on her. And it was only by the merest thousandths of a second that Gabby did get third. So she's qualified. She's going back, and she's just a great one. And she's got a little time to put an edge on her training and see if she can get herself back close to where she was 1 year ago, and maybe give Melissa a little bit of a run in the 200. Let's hope so. That would be pretty exciting.
Well, this was certainly a case where NBC knew where the camera belonged, and it was on Gabby Thomas sitting there on the track, and the result was not instantaneous. She and the rest of us had to wait quite a while to get it, but we are happy to see her on the team because she is such a star in so many ways, and she's going to have her hands more than full in Tokyo, but she has a way of rising to the occasion, or at least in the past she has. You know, George, some of the biggest women's sprint action was not on the track in Eugene, and I think you followed the Sha'Carri Richardson story a little bit more than I did. I know that she still will be running in Tokyo because she's the defending champ, which gives her a bye, but she did not run a race in Eugene, did she?
No, and you're right, she gets a bye. And probably best she didn't run because she was in the midst of a bit of a chaotic situation. We don't clearly know how it all unpacked, but her boyfriend, the sprinter, formerly great champion Christian Coleman, who was in the 100, but I think only came 5th, but it was a respectable sub 10. It was a 9.86 5th. He did a good job. They got into some kind of a spat in the airport, and it included some physical stuff, some pushing and shoving, and some talk about Sha'Carri abusing him. And, I don't know all of it, but it's definitely not the kind of thing you want to have on your plate when you're coming into a championship meet or build up to a world championship. So we'll have to see what the story is and if charges get pressed and all the rest. And they've been in a relationship, I gather, for a couple of years, Christian and Sha'Carri. And so, we'll just have to see. But it's a sport that normally doesn't have this kind of drama. And maybe it's not a bad thing in some way that it does. And there was some other pretty interesting.
I was going to do the transition, but I can see you're going to go there too.
Yeah, I'll let you. It was at the finish of a great race with, right now maybe the 2 top 200-meter guys in the world. And yeah, take us through it. I'm not quite fully sure all that happened, but I know, what we saw.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are fully sure. I've heard a little bit of talk of people speculating about fake Twitter accounts and all sorts of stuff. But what I know is that Kenny Bednarik, the terrific American sprinter, has had an unbelievable year. I think he was undefeated going into Eugene, and he won convincingly in the men's 100 with a 9:79, looking very strong and fast as he has all year. And then he finished up with the 200, which had Noah Lyles in it, who, of course, is one of the very biggest names in the world in track and field.
3-time world champion, Noah Lyles. We can never forget that at 200 meters. Only Usain Bolt can claim to have done better than that.
And through the curve of the 200 men's final, I would have given you about 95% sure thing on Kenny Bednarek because he looked to be way ahead at that point. And yet Noah came through and ran a terrific straightaway and got to Kenny at the finish line, and he got to him in more ways than one. And George, you take it.
Yeah, what I saw, and I don't know, and sometimes words are exchanged that we don't pick up on, but what I saw was Noah Lyles, who crossed the finish line just ahead of Kenny, and just to let you know what it was 19.63 against 19.67, so that's an eyelash. And but as he crossed the finish line, he turned and gave him a kind of a look, not maybe
a long look,
maybe not a friendly look either, I would say. And Kenny reacted instinctively. This is all my read as I watched it on TV, and gave him kind of a shove, pushed him moderately hard. He didn't fall down or anything. In fact, typical Noah Lyles, he sort of danced away from it as part of his victory dance, and on it went. And then they got interviewed by Lewis Johnson, and it's hard to say that they had made peace at that point. You got a sense these were two proud and strong-minded competitors who are going to go to Tokyo with gold in their eyes. And so there's a bit of an emphasis on that particular rivalry as we get into Tokyo now, that I think is going to get a lot of attention.
Well, for sure. What I saw, or think I saw, is at the end of the race, they run on the straightaway and then they decelerate on the curve. And that curve, of course, brings Lyles in front of Bednarek. And these guys often kind of collide after they run through the finish line. But what you do is you gently put out your hand so that you can just keep yourself from bouncing off the other guy. In this case, Kenny did more than put his hands out to avoid a collision. He definitely gave a shove, and it was more shove than was necessary. And Noah reacted by turning around and a couple of gestures of undetermined meaning, but it wasn't pure friendship at that point. And Bednarek apparently went into the mix zone and was still a little bit heated and said something like, well, Noah should have called me up and we could have talked this all out before the race on, in a private conversation. And Noah, when he came through, had been told by his coach not to say anything. So he simply didn't chat. I'm sure, I hope that they will patch this up before Tokyo, because they're going to be racing in Tokyo and they're going to be teammates in Tokyo on a strong relay team. So
strong relay team, maybe handing to each other, perhaps Kenny running the curve and Noah Lyles running the anchor leg on the 4x100. And by the way, neither of them has ownership on the 200. There is the Olympic champion from Botswana, Letsile Tobogo, and he's got to be considered part of a three-man favorite group, I would say, as we head into what is another highly anticipated race coming up there at the World Championships. There's one person I can't leave out of any discussion of this weekend's great meet, Amby, and she just always wins our heart. And Dalilah Muhammad has said that this is going to be her last year. And what a career it's been for her at 400-meter hurdles. I mean, she's been the champion, the world record holder. This is all, of course, before Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone after she got married. But Dalilah has set a standard, of grace and just, excellence in every way, and durability. I think she's 35 now and been doing this for a long, long time. And so she's not looking to go back to the Olympics. After this in 28, she's saying this is her finale. And she put a really great exclamation point on it by winning the 400-meter hurdles very fast, beating Anna Cockrell, who herself had gotten a silver medal in Paris behind the one and only Sydney. And Sydney herself has decided to not run the 400-meter hurdles. She's going to run the 400-meter flat, and she won that, of course, because Sydney wins every race she's entered in. It's just one of those things.
By about 10 meters.
That leaves another great, I think, race to look forward to, because there's always Femke Bol from the Netherlands, who's another, delightful competitor in the sport, who's been a dominant 400-meter and 400-meter hurdle runner. And she'll be there with Delilah and with Anna Cockrell, who got second, of course, in this race. I think the three of them are a lot to look forward to as well. Something very special could happen in that.
Well, I think we all root for the long-time, proven, graceful veterans like Delilah Muhammad, just as we always root for the high schoolers like Cooper Lukenhaus. So a meet that has both of those coming through with spectacular performances is a meet that emphasizes the breadth and depth and age range of the sport, which is terrific. We can't completely overlook the women's middle distance and distance races, George. I'll just give my quick impressions and then you can add something. Women's 800, I was happy that Sage Herta Klecker finally made a world team with her diving third place in the 800. In the 1500, Nikki Hiltz ran tactically perfectly, as she almost always does, and clinched her, I don't know, was it her fourth consecutive crown in the distance? Great race there. And in the 5,000, Shelby Houlihan came through with a win. She, of course, is the woman famously coming back from the 4-year ban. And I give her a lot of credit for staying healthy and fit and competitive throughout that 4-year period, because that's not something anyone else has ever done before, I don't think. She came up with a big sprint to win the women's 5,000. I was surprised in the 10,000 that Wayne Kaladi did not make the team again. She finished fourth. There, the podium was Emily Infeld, Elise Craney, and Taylor Rowe, the young Puma star who's had a terrific year on the roads and on the track also. What did you take from those races, George?
Yeah, I like the women's 800 a lot, and the winner was Royson Willis, who was also the NCAA champion this year. She's from Stanford. And throughout the meet, all days of this meet, we were constantly reminded, as we saw these top NCAA performers do so well on the national level. And, there is nothing in any other country, Amby, that we could remotely compare to our national collegiate running programs. You go to Texas and Arkansas, Stanford, and you're performing at the high level. You're ready to compete at the international level. And it to me has been a defining quality of American running. Most all American champions have come through the U.S. college system. And, it doesn't happen that way. It's not even true in the UK, and certainly not in other countries. And of course, we do get runners from other countries who want to come here. and train and compete at the NCAA level. We've seen that over and over again. But it says an awful lot, it seems to me, for American track and field, the ability to, and it doesn't matter, what college it is. You could be Graham Blanks, who's just out of Harvard, for gosh sakes. And he's a spectacular distance runner. And, on to Tokyo he goes. And I guess the other thing to get off the college and the NCAA thing for a minute is we should mention Grant Fisher. He was so incredible in Paris. We mentioned it before, but he got 2 second places here, and behind Cole Hocker at 1,500. At 5,000, the 2 events that he had medaled in Paris, and then a second place behind Nico Young at the 10,000. And although he didn't win either, he doesn't seem to quite have that extraordinary leg speed at the end. You can't rule him off the podium for either of those events in Tokyo. He's just such a smart, savvy runner who, gets himself fit for the big moments. And so I just wanted to, give a shout out, even though he didn't win either of those races.
No, he certainly deserves the shout out for what he's accomplished on the U.S. and world scene the last 3 years, as you note. At the same time, there's barely an eyelash between him and Nico Young in the 5,000 and 10,000 now. In fact, Nico beat him in the 10,000, and I don't want to say he's got a slightly better kick, but he's come up with a strong kick a couple of times this year. Both of these guys are going to be fantastic marathoners sometimes, but I guess I shouldn't push that one out there too much. But American middle distance and distance running is almost at the highest stage it's ever been now, after many years where we kind of bemoaned the fact that we just couldn't quite keep up with the rest of the world. Now we're there. The rest of the world knows it. And these guys are going to be contenders in all the races they're in when they get to Tokyo, which Tokyo World Championships, I believe, is maybe the third week in September. So we've got 5-6 weeks to go before that. I might add that there is a second way to get to Tokyo for some of the runners who were disappointed here at Nationals in Eugene, particularly guys like Jared Naguse and Josh Hoey, I'm thinking, are the main contenders. If somebody wins the Zurich Diamond League final at the end of August, if you win that race, that automatically gets you into the World Championships. And if a Josh Hoey or Jared or Hobbs Kessler or any of them win in Zurich, they get added to the U.S. team, and the U.S. can have 4 runners in those events. So that's still coming up. I think you're so right about the U.S. collegiate system. I can remember years and years of debating where we said, maybe there's too much pressure, maybe there's too much racing, maybe we should let our runners develop more slowly and gradually as they do in Europe in the club system. Now I don't think there's anyone who thinks that. I mean, how can you compete with the U.S. colleges for facilities, for coaching? Now the athletes can essentially be professionals through the NIL deals. U.S. colleges are the way to go. They're the system that produces our Olympic team, and not USATF, which I'm not sure what they do. Perhaps I'm too constant a critic there, but I know many who feel the same. So did we miss anything, George?
Yeah. One that I think deserves a real tip of the hat before we sign off. We mentioned Dalila in the 400-meter hurdles, but also in the 400-meter hurdles men, there's Rai Benjamin, and he's just something spectacular. He's obviously now the Olympic champion from Paris. consistently up at the top. He ran away from the field to make this team. I mean, almost a 2-second margin. He ran in the 46s. He's ready to, compete with Dos Santos and Karsten Warholm, the other two major players at 400-meter hurdles. And Rai Benjamin is one of those special guys. Even in the quick 45, 60-second interview, he gives you something. He's just a charming guy. He's, got something great to say, $1 million smile. He's one of those people, I think, that over the years has been so good for the sport. And I'm a big fan of his.
That's a good one, George. Thank you very much for that. And I think that's it for this week's episode of Running State of the Sport. We hope you enjoyed spending the time with us as much as we enjoyed being with you. We'll be back again soon with another episode. Until then, please tell your friends about Running State of the Sport. And we'd also appreciate a review at your favorite podcast host, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. In signing off, here's our hope for the state of your own personal running. Chin up, clear eyes, full heart, keep moving, onward.